So today is Tuesday, game two, Boston Celtics versus the Milwaukee Bucks is tonight, and this is actually a fun little story to talk about because all season the Boston Celtics have been underwhelming, to say the most. I mean, they didn't even win 50 games this year, and I don't know. It's just fun to talk about. These underdog stories are so much fun to talk about because they catch people off guard. They catch them by surprise, and I think this was the biggest surprise of the NBA postseason so far was the Boston Celtics beating Milwaukee by 20 points and negating the effectiveness of the super athletic Giannis Antetokounmpo, who is supposed to be the new LeBron now. So, game two is tonight. I expect a great game. I expect Giannis and the Bucks to come out with a little more urgency than they did in game one. And I don't know, man. Look, the best thing about watching the Celtics and being a supporter of the Celtics, as long as I have been, is that I can look at them with an objective eye. I can notice the bad, and then I could see the good, and I could notice the bad in other teams, and I could see the good, and I could know what outcome is more likely to happen. And I knew this was going to happen. Milwaukee's not very talented, and I did a video yesterday saying this. I did a couple videos in the past about the Celtics saying this, and I watched a segment on TV, and they were saying it. Mike Budenholzer is the Marty Schottenheimer of the NBA right now. He's a great regular season coach. He can coach a subpar team to 60 wins, but come the playoffs, they flame out. I didn't know who the Atlanta Hawks lost to when they won 60 when he was the coach of that team. But I found out yesterday that it was the Cleveland Cavaliers with LeBron, and they swept them. And this was, I believe this was the first year LeBron was in Cleveland, back in Cleveland after leaving Miami. And they swept them. I believe second round they swept them. So This is crazy, man. I don't know. I have no idea. I want to say that I'm confident that the Celtics can win tonight, but I don't know. It depends on. I'm gonna see how the game starts off. If Giannis is a lot more physical, and if he plays a lot smarter, then I think Milwaukee has a great chance to win the game. Because there's no fucking way that you're going to lose. You're the number one seed. You're going up against a team, a 5 seed, that didn't even win 50 games. There's no way you're going to lose the first 2 games at home and completely lose home court advantage. And the only way that you can win the series is by winning 2 games on the road. There's no fucking way. There's no way you're going to do that. So I believe that they're going to come out with some urgency. Now, we'll see how the game goes. Now, the thing about the Celtics is, like I said, the only way you could really beat them is if they beat themselves. That's the only way you could beat this team is if they beat themselves. And the only way, a couple of ways that I've seen that they have effectively beaten themselves was by shooting a shitload of three-pointers or not showing the effort on defense and giving up a lot of bad shots. I'm talking about bad for them. Giving up a lot of open shots, giving up a lot of three-pointers, not really closing out on your opponents. But when they're hungry and when you can see that they want it, Boston is pretty fucking unstoppable, man. Like they can beat anybody. And I've said this because I've watched the Boston versus Golden State games the last 2 years. Shit, the last 3 years, honestly, back when they had Isaiah Thomas, Boston gives them fits. They cause them issues. And I remember last year there were back-to-back games, Golden State in Houston. I believe they played Golden State first, and then they played Houston, and they kept both of them under 100 points. And they beat them both. So they can beat any team in this league under the right circumstances. And what I mean by that is when their head is in the game, when they're playing smart, when they're playing together, when they're taking good shots, when they're making good shots. Now, with a formula like that, you're saying, oh, anybody can win then. But that's the only way that they can effectively beat any team in this league. Yeah, they don't have the name. I'm not going to say name ranking because I'm pretty sure everybody knows the core of the Celtics at this point. They don't have the star power of a Golden State. They don't have the offensive mastermind like a Mike D'Antoni that can exploit your offensive abilities and crank them up like 20 notches. You know, and I don't know. They're a good collection of players, man. And I get it. They have a lot of players that are the same kind of players, almost at the same position. I get it. And it's almost like an oversaturation of the same type of player. I don't know, but they're just, when they're winning, they're good. And you can just see how good they are and how much they're taxing on the brains of certain teams. Especially like a Golden State who thrives on offense. Golden State thrives on offense. I'm not saying they're not a good defensive team, but their bread and butter is their offensive ball movement and their three-point shooting. That's their bread and butter. Being able to wear you down with how well they can knock down shots. They're not a physical team. They're not an in-the-post team. They're long-range, mid-range to long-range jump shooters who wear you out on offense. And then when they wear you out on offense, they take advantage of that on defense. Now, I'm going to stop talking. I'm going to let the video play. But, yeah, man, like, Boston is real, man. And I needed them to get their shit together before the playoffs started. Sorry, just looking at something.
All right, Sarah, how surprised were you?
Surprised, very surprised. I mean, this was the Boston Celtics team that we were talking about all offseason that was picking up 2 All-Stars after going to the Eastern Conference Finals. So just a tremendous job by Boston and what they were able to do on the defensive end, the connectivity that we understood, the game plan by Brad Stevens. I think there's been times throughout the course of this year where there has been wavering support of how good of a coach really is he. Did he overblow the things that he's done throughout the course of the past couple seasons? But Al Horford is the linchpin. I mean, he is the linchpin of this team on both ends of the floor, the way in which he can organize what they were able to do. But I think more than anything that was impressive, their boxes and elbows, they showed a crowd. But against Giannis, it wasn't just about eliminating what he was able to do. It was the late help situations. It was giving different looks, showing different players, because they also negated Sterling Brown, Eric Bledsoe, Brook Lopez.
Pat Connaughton was...
I've already said this, and I'm going to say this again. Milwaukee is not a great team. And the only thing that they're really riding on is the mystique of Giannis Antetokounmpo. That's it. And if you could find a way, which is not... Listen, it's not hard. It's not like Giannis is fucking LeBron. LeBron is hard to stop because he's fast, he's physical, he's strong, he's super fucking athletic. And now he could fucking shoot. He could shoot a couple years ago and back in Miami, but now he can fucking shoot. This dude is hard to fucking stop. Jordan was hard to stop. Durant is hard to stop. These players are hard to stop. No matter what you do, they are hard to fucking negate. Giannis is not one of them. Because he doesn't have a jump shot. The only difference between all those guys that I just named and Giannis is that Giannis does not have a jump shot that you can believe in. That's the only way. And this is the problem with him. This is the problem with Ben Simmons. This is the problem with a bunch of players that are great, talented players, but can't fucking shoot worth a lick. And when you can't shoot, you make the job of defending you so much easier. But some teams are so stupid, they don't take advantage of it. but Giannis is not hard to stop. You just have to be committed, and you have to be as physical as possible. You have to be imposing. You have to make Giannis second guess himself, and you have to force him to make mistakes, and that's what they did. That team is not talented. Now, I'm not saying they can't win this series, because Giannis, I believe, if he's doing what he's comfortable with, and if he has a way of forcing you to allow him to do what he's comfortable with, he can kill you. And they have done it this season. Even though I've already said that during the regular season, you play so many different teams that you're not playing the best talent. You're not playing the team's best effort every single night. So it's easy to rack up. It's easier to rack up 60 wins in a regular season than it is to rack up 16 wins in the postseason. It's a lot easier. It's really easy. So you can't really look at the record and say Milwaukee is this great team when their record does not support their record does not support what they are when you look at them on the court. I don't know. It's just the way I look at it, because I've watched Milwaukee play and I am so underwhelmed. Like, Giannis is a fucking physical freak. I keep saying it, but they're just so unimpressive as a unit. And sure, they swept Detroit. Detroit didn't have Blake Griffin for the first 2 or 3 games, which Blake Griffin has proven that he's the best player on that team. And then outside of him, outside of Andre Drummond, who's getting better as the years go on, it seems like they have nobody else. Who else do they have? Reggie Jackson, who's completely inconsistent. Since he was in OKC, this dude has been so fucking inconsistent. I mean, can you really depend on him? I'm surprised that Detroit held on to him, honestly, but they probably held on to him because they didn't have anybody else. But there's nobody else on that team, so of course Milwaukee blew it. Giannis could have sat the whole series, and they would have fucking swept him. That's how untalented. That's how not talented the fucking the Detroit Pistons are. So you can't really use that as a barometer, or use their record as a barometer to say this team is great. But people keep giving this team the benefit of the doubt. Who did Milwaukee lose to last year, even though they were the more talented team on the court going into the playoffs? Boston. Boston beat them in 7. Oh, well, it's because Boston had home court and they won every single game at home. That don't matter. I thought in the NBA, it matters whoever has the best player in the series, that's who win the fucking series. Not last year. The best player in that series, to me, was Terry Rozier. That was the best. Man, that dude played so fucking well. I believe that they couldn't have won those home games without him. Honestly, because he caused so many fits for that team, for Eric Bledsoe. If you have players that can win their matchups individually, you have a great recipe to win. Even if you're not talented, even if you're not as talented as the team you're facing, if you could win your individual matchups, you will win. And Giannis just didn't have enough last year to get it done. And I honestly believe, what the fuck is the difference with this team? There's nothing different between last year and this year. There's nothing different. They're the same fucking team. They just got better shooters. And that's it. And they got Budenholzer. And Giannis has gotten better this year. But there's really no big difference. So, I don't know, man.
But a lot of that too, they weren't even getting the touches and looks. So more often than not, the common thought is, okay, let Giannis get his and make sure you take away the others, or force the others to beat you. And they did both of those things. And so I expect a very different look from Milwaukee. I don't think that this writes off the series and the Celtics are going to run away with this one. I'm still picking Milwaukee. I do think that Giannis comes back with a big game, but I just thought...
I don't know, Sarah. Paul Pierce said it's over. He said the series is over.
If Paul Pierce says it, the Celtics legend.
And they're laughing about Paul, and people have been making jokes about Paul Pierce. But I gotta tell you, man, when it comes to the Celtics, Paul Pierce is rarely wrong. I'm not saying he's never wrong. He's just rarely wrong. Because when you watch the Celtics play, he's seeing the same shit I'm seeing. And he's he's probably watching every game with just vicious intent, man. Just wanting to see the pros and cons of this team. And he knows what they're good at. He knows what they're bad at. He knows what teams they're great matched up against, and he knows what teams they may have problems with. And the problem that people have with Paul Pierce is in their eyes, he has some undying loyalty to Boston. And whether it's true or not has nothing to do with me. I don't really care. But he's almost always right. He's almost always right. And then when he is right, after he's been proven right, people give him a hard time about it. I mean, this series may be over. If Milwaukee loses tonight, this series is fucking over. There's nothing Milwaukee can do. I don't know. You lose your first 2 home games. That completely wipes away home court advantage. I mean, home court advantage is already lost. The only way you could get it back is winning 1 game on the road. But if you lose 2 games at home, now you have to win 2 on the road. And Boston, TD Garden is not very easy to win at. How raucous those fans are and how much they love this team, that is not going to be easy. It's going to be very fucking intimidating to win there. So, I don't know, man. People make fun of Paul Pierce, man. But Paul Pierce, he sees what I'm seeing. And he knows, man. Last year was just an example of how overmatched the Boston Celtics are. I mean, how overmatched the Milwaukee Bucks are by the Boston Celtics. Because last year, they didn't have Kyrie. They didn't have Gordon Hayward. And, these players weren't as experienced as they are now. So, I don't know, man.
But I was very impressed with the game plan, the execution, but that's a lot of the Celtics that we have known, given the personnel that they have and the way in which Brad Stevens laid things out for us guys.
I was absolutely dumbfounded by this game because nobody does this to Milwaukee, and nobody does this to Giannis.
They did it last year. I believe Jason Whitlock brought it up. They beat Milwaukee by 20 points last year in game 1. I believe it was game 1. He said that they beat them by 20 points. No. It was Derek Fisher. It was Derek Fisher. It wasn't Jason Whitlock. It was Derek Fisher, and it was post game. And they were talking about just the poetic nature of this game, of last game, and how, look, man, Milwaukee doesn't have an extensive playoff history. I mean, they won a title like 60 years ago, but other than that, they really have done less than nothing. And ever since they got Giannis, every year they get better, man. But who the fuck is Giannis? Who the fuck is the Milwaukee Bucks? Nobody does this to Milwaukee. Apparently Boston does, because they beat them last year and they whooping their ass this year so far. So I don't know, man.
Giannis has 4 2-point baskets. Are you kidding me? That's a good half a quarter for Giannis this year. The way Al Horford and Baines in fewer possessions just. And
this is why I say Giannis is the new LeBron. Look at Nick Wright. He looks genuinely stupefied. Like, what the Boston? Kyrie? How did you beat Giannis? He's the new Superman. Like, seriously, people really do look at this dude like he's LeBron now. Like, to beat him is such an unfathomable idea. You can't really wrap your brain around it. But the difference between LeBron and the difference between Giannis is LeBron had the experience. He led his team to the NBA Finals in 2007. Before we started looking at this dude like he was the greatest thing to ever walk the goddamn earth. But I've never looked at LeBron like that. I've always noticed inconsistencies in his play, and I've always noticed the flaws in his game. But again, I'm objective. Even with my own teams, I'm super critical. And that's because I trust nothing, I trust no one, and I'll always stay objective. I never fall in love with anything. I'm never a prisoner of the fucking moment when it comes to sports. Because when you become prisoners of the moment, that's when you'll always just fall down this deep, dark hole of how the fuck did I get here? And why am I here? You know, like, and I believe that's what happened with these LeBron fans, man. Like, they fell in love with this guy because he was super athletic. He was super exciting to watch. And, you know, he was super humble. And I'm throwing up the quotation because I'm being sarcastic. He's not humble. I mean, this dude won one ring after going 9 years without winning shit, and he calls himself Lord of the Rings. Oh my God. That was so stupid. Jesus Christ.
Nominated the guy who's going to win league MVP, to me was as impressive of a defense. That first quarter, I tweeted it and I believe it. That first quarter they put together against Milwaukee was the best defensive quarter we might see in the playoffs all year. Like what they did, and Giannis never, even after that quarter, got comfortable. Milwaukee actually, they fell down 15 points in the second quarter. They went on a 15-0 run. They went on most of that run with Giannis on the bench. Mm-hmm. They actually got in their flow without Giannis out there. You felt, or at least I felt.
Because when you have a player who is as great as he is, you depend on him for everything. This is the problem. This was the problem with the Sixers when Allen Iverson was on the team. This is the problem with those Laker teams after they won those titles with when Paul Gasol got there, and after he left, and it was just Kobe there. And this is the problem with a lot of these LeBron teams. And when you have super dominant players, and you're used to playing a certain way when they're on the court. When they're not on the court, you don't have that identity anymore. You don't have an identity anymore. Because you're so wrapped up in being what the star needs you to be. When they're not out there, now you need to, like, it's like I don't know, it's like being a follower of a leader who you believe in. And you want to do everything you can to complement what they do. And if something ever happened to them, you're not a leader, you're a follower. You're built to follow orders. But there's nobody else there that's the leader, and then you just become lost. And that's what, and the perfect example of that are these LeBron teams. When LeBron is on the court, everybody has a certain identity. When LeBron's off the court, you still have to. I don't. They get caught up in still being that person that they were when he was on the court, but you don't have anybody that does what he does to help you win. This is why they lose, and this is why, like, I didn't give Kyrie a hard time when he was in Cleveland, and they would lose when LeBron wasn't on the court, because I understood the system that these teams run when they have LeBron is his system. It complements his game. It doesn't complement Kyrie's game. It doesn't complement Kevin Love's game. And this is why, like, Kevin Love was a 2020 guy in Minnesota. When he got to Cleveland, just like when Chris Bosh left Toronto and went to Miami, their numbers decreased. I don't want to go as far as to say their proficiency decreased, but it felt that way. You know, their game decreased because LeBron's like a black hole. He just sucks in everything, and it kind of diminishes what you are. You know, and Kevin Love and Chris Bosh are great examples of superstar talented players, superstar caliber players, or super talented players, their games being diminished just by being on the same team as LeBron. Yeah, it may help you win, but still, man, like, I don't know. And that's the problem I can see with Giannis, is that you get so caught up in using his abilities to help you further your career, and, you know, further your chances of winning a championship, that you get caught up being what he needs you to be. And I'm not saying Giannis, you know, forces them to do that, but that's just the system that they run in Milwaukee. So now I'm glad they're doing this early, and they're realizing, okay, all right, we can do this even if he's not on the court, because you don't want to get caught up in that. All right, you have a superstar talented player, and I have to fit my game to match yours. even though my game doesn't hold up on its own if you're not on the court. You don't want to get caught up in that, man. And that's the problem with these LeBron teams. They get caught up in that, and then they wind up getting lost. And then everybody's wondering, like, well, why aren't they playing so great? Why aren't they helping more? Why aren't they doing this? Why aren't they doing that? Like, just look at Lonzo. Lonzo has been super mistreated since he's been drafted. Like, if I'm Lonzo, I'm looking to move on from LA, and I'm looking to go somewhere else. Go to, like, Phoenix. They need a fucking point guard. Go to Orlando. I mean, I'm not saying I don't have any faith in Markelle Fultz getting his shit together, but you could go there. There's plenty of other places to go.
Well, man, with the way they weathered Boston's punch in the first half, they're down a couple at halftime. Now Giannis will get going, and Milwaukee will do what they're supposed to do, which is win game one at home. But it only got worse from there. They only had one solid quarter the whole game, did Milwaukee. That was the second quarter. The Celtics deserve enormous credit for everything they did in this game. Their offense has gotten better every single game of the playoffs, and their defense has remained elite. It was surprising to me Boston won. It was shocking that it was an annihilation the way it was.
Yeah, it was shocking that it was a blowout. But Brad Stevens, as you mentioned, you have to give him a lot of credit right from the beginning. Right since they won the Pacers series 4-0, he put Marcus Morris in the lineup. Most people didn't know it. The Bucks weren't expecting it. But every practice that they've practiced, he was the starting four. So they moved your guy, Al Horford, to the 5. We saw in last year's playoff, Joel Embiid rolling through the playoff, had tremendous problems with Al Horford. There are guys that when you match up with them, they give you ability. It's about smarts. It's about body position. It's about not letting you get to your spot. Giannis had, one dunk? Yeah, one dunk. If you're able to hold him, and he had the most dunks unassisted since Shaq played in the league, you're taking away one of the huge weapons. The other thing that they did, compared to what the Pistons try to do, they allowed Giannis to get the ball at the three-point line, get a full head of steam by playing off of him in the lane. No, they engaged him at 18 feet. They loaded up the defense where at least 6 eyeballs, that defender and 2 other defenders on that side of the court would be loaded up to be able to stop him. Those are the things that Brad Stevens and the Celtics did. Now they're going to load up the defense.
Giannis, I'm gonna say this. I'm gonna say these 2 points, and then I'm gonna end this. Giannis is a phenomenal athlete, but I don't consider him to be a phenomenal ball handler. And I believe Giannis's game is predicated on space. Like, if you give him enough space to move, this dude could get anywhere on the court he wants to with no issues whatsoever. And that's why he's been killing teams, because it's just that space to be able to move and be able to dribble the ball where he wants. He can get to a spot. You apply the pressure. You force him to dribble more than he's comfortable with. You force him to make moves. You force him to. I'm a bad dribbler. Like, I play basketball. I'm a bad dribbler. I'm a great shooter. I'm a bad dribbler. If you give me space, I can dribble. If you get into my face and you force and you apply pressure, I'm not thinking about passing. I'm not thinking about shooting. I'm thinking about, I don't want to turn this ball over, so I'm just going to try to dribble as carefully as possible. So now you're focused on your dribble. And you're not focused on anything else. You're not focused on kicking out to your teammates. The only way that you can focus on kicking out to your teammates is if you stop dribbling. That's the problem of a bad dribbler, is you have to, it's like you can't multitask because you're not good at it. So you have to either focus on dribbling or you have to focus on passing. And if you focus on passing, you got to pick up your dribble, because you will lose the ball because you're not paying attention. That's the problem. And I'm not calling Giannis a bad dribbler. I'm just saying he's not as good a dribbler as some of the other forwards in the league. So you have to apply the pressure. You have to force him to either pass, or you have to force him to focus on his dribble. And that's how you force them to make mistakes, is making them single-minded. And that's the way to shut that guy like that down. I mean, you gotta apply pressure. His game is predicated on physicality and athleticism. You have to be as equally as physical as he is. So another point was, Al Horford, I've said this, he's the leader of this team. He was the leader last year. He's the leader this year. And it's not because he was in the league longer. It's not because, of his success or whatever. I mean, because when he was in Atlanta, he couldn't stay healthy. But it's about mindset. He is so mature. Mindset. And you want your younger guys to be mature. I mean, he's the kind of guy that can mentor young guys and bring them along. And that's why he's the leader of the team. Kyrie's the best player. He's the leader. Kyrie is slowly working towards becoming the leader, but he's not yet. And you don't want to be a leader like LeBron that's just, you're thrusting in a leadership position without any leadership qualities whatsoever. So, Al Horford is the leader of this team. Last year, what he did to Joel Embiid was hilarious. Because Joel Embiid was just pretty much owning every fucking big man in the league that he wanted to. He was posting up 20-point games. He was grabbing 10 rebounds. He was blocking shots. He was shooting threes. I mean, he was just clowning every big man that covered him. And what happened when he got to the second round of the playoffs? Al Horford made his life a living hell. I mean, yeah, he was getting some of his numbers, but Al Horford, man, he exposed Joel Embiid. Joel Embiid was so weak. Like, he could not push him. And Aaron Baines as well, man. He could not just bully his way to wherever he wanted. They made his life a living hell last year. And I believe that was a big reason why they lost that series as fast as they did. Because Joel Embiid was just getting pushed the fuck around. And then also Ben Simmons' ineffectiveness. They totally exploited those young kids, man. And I said this going into the playoffs last year. Like, everybody's calling these two guys superstars because they were fucking calling them superstars last year. But after that after that Boston series versus Philadelphia, then everybody started changing their tune once they seen how bad they were getting the ass kicked. So, I'm done. This is a really fun topic, man, and I think Boston is just such a fun story, man, because they're kind of they're forcing these bullshit commentators to be wrong, and they're forcing them to come up with lies on the spot, and you slowly start to see these commentators change their tune about Boston, and it's just fun to watch because I think these guys are so bad at their fucking job, and some of them are so unqualified. The only reason why they're on TV is because of their face and their name, but some of them are so fucking unqualified. And it's just fun to watch them be wrong. My bad. All right, I'm done.